Hi, everybody. Just checking the audio, just to see if everything is okay. Can you hear me all?
Hello. Yeah.
Audio is good. Okay. I'm just going to wait for a few more to come in. We've still got a few more people joining up now. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes. If you want to get a last coffee or send a last email, take a last call, please do, and then we'll start in a couple of minutes. Hi, Sabrish.
Morning, Andy.
So we did have, I think it was near almost 60 people registered, which is fantastic, fantastic response. Currently got about 20 with different people still coming in. So like I say, I'm just going to leave it a couple of minutes just to get everybody time to get in. So if you want to, like I say, do a last email or get a coffee, please do, and then we'll start in a couple of minutes. Yeah, numbers are starting to go up now. So, like I say, there are a few latecomers. So I'm just going to leave it a couple more minutes, get everybody in, and then we'll start.
Sure.
Please, everybody, if you have a think about some questions. So I'm not sure if you have already been on some of the previous sessions that either Datapath as a whole or myself have conducted. This will be running over a similar theme, but what I'll try and do is get through the slides more quickly. I'm sure you know a little bit about what's going on now, and then we can have a bit more time then for some more chat between ourselves, either in the chat and I can read the questions out, or if you want to come on camera or on mic, then we can do that. So yeah, we'll do it like that. I'll leave sections at the end of each section of product that we can have a little recap, and then if anybody needs to go out, come back, you can, and it should give us enough time within 90 minutes to wrap it all up, and then hopefully it'll be useful. and with everybody being from the same team, then hopefully it might not be as daunting to ask some questions. I've got a message here say the audio is not coming. Is everybody else okay with the audio?
Yeah, no, audible.
Okay. I have been using this already this morning with some colleagues, and the audio was fine. So hopefully we can get the audio sorted out for Vinay. Okay, we've just got 3 more joining now, and once they get in, then I'm going to start the presentation, and there may be some others who join up a little bit later. But if we can start now. We'll have a little bit more time for the Q&A at the end. Okay. Right. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. I don't know if you want to do a little introduction, Sab, or do you want me to just carry on?
You can start, Randy. No problem.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'll turn my camera off now. It's just a little hi to say hello to everybody, and like I say, thank you for your time today. Bit of a strange time. I hope everybody's staying safe and well. So yeah, we'll go straight into it now. Turn my video off, and I'll just share the presentation. Okay. So just leave that on that screen. Here we go. So Datapath, who are we? A lot of you know that we're UK-based company. I've been for over 30 years now, and we make video wall capture cards, graphics cards, chassis, controller systems, software, and multi-display products. So our VSN range is the core range, and this is where we've traditionally been strong. So traffic management, defense, surveillance, knock rooms, big security rooms. We've been particularly strong in this region for a long time. And then we have an iLite range, which is a smaller, more compact version, still uses the same card technology, and these are ideal for boardrooms, high-end digital signage, small crisis rooms. So they still effectively use the same technology, same software, but they are a smaller, more compact version for these particular setups, and they're very quiet compared to some of the big server systems which we offer. And then we have the multi-display range. So this is where you've probably seen it in the market, FX4, HX4. Previously, before that, was the X4. So these are an award-winning range of products, which effectively they're a splitter, but they do a lot more than that. So they can crop, they can scale, they can rotate the output. So it gives us a big flexibility, and it's a very popular system in the industry. And it's the software really which drives these products. So straight into multi-display. As you can see, we've got 4 units at the moment. So FX4 and HX4. And then more recently, we've added the FX4 SDI and the flagship HDR unit, which was released at ISE. So talking about the HDR version, this takes all of the features from the standard FX4 range and adds some key features which we didn't support before. And these are HDMI 2.0 input. And what this gives us is the ability to support HDCP 2.2 and the HDR10 color clarity. So from a lot of the people that we've been speaking to, this is a big thing, especially with LED and signage projects where they're looking at high brightness and high color clarity. HDR10 is important. And as far as we know, we're the only splitter scaler on the market that supports this properly with that. And it also allows audio to pass through as well now, whereas previously it didn't. Okay, so this is a some big developments from us in this region, and here you can see the unit. So we've added, instead of the DisplayPort input, we now have a HDMI 2.0 input. We do have two other inputs, HDMI 1.4. You can only show one at any one time still, but if you want to switch between them, then this is available. So you've still got your ability to rotate, scale, crop, and bezel correct, which is, you know, what the big selling points of the unit are. But these extra features in the HDR version really bring it up to speed and allow it to support functions from, say, manufacturers like Brightsign, who have a true 4K 60 HDMI 2 media player. We can take that feed now and pass through those full effects with HDR10 onto the displays. And obviously we still have the FX4, which was an Innovate Award winner a couple of years ago. So that we've got the DisplayPort and the HDMI versions, the only difference being on the outputs. And the SDI version, which is very popular with live events guys. So this was developed really for Green Hippo, one of our customers in the UK initially. So they were using FX4s and a converter. So they were taking in a feed, then they were using some kind of converter, going into an FX4, and then outputting, or sorry, converting the outputs to SDI. So with this, it takes a link out of the chain. That's why they really like it, because there's less cabling. They can put their 4K 60 input into it, usually using DisplayPort, and then this box will not only output to the SDI, but obviously it makes the conversion. So we're taking a piece out of the chain, and it's making it a lot easier for them, so they can then put your input in on DisplayPort and output long distances over SDI. And then we have a stripped back version, the HX4, which is just one HDMI in and 4 HDMI out. So ideal for a 2x2 video wall. Okay. I will share these slides afterwards. So this is just a comparison of the systems. But what really drives these systems, I'm just going to show this, is the wall designer software. So it has a big database of pre-installed displays with the correct bezel sizes, screen sizes, and we can drag and drop them around onto the video wall, and you can add content to it. And it's easier for me to show you with a demo. So let me just show you, share this. Sharing that. Okay, so I'll start sharing Wall Designer. Okay, can everybody see my Wall Designer screen now, Sab? Can you see that?
Yes, Andy.
Yeah, Andy, we could see.
Okay. So we've got a big database here of, like I say, preloaded professional displays. Let's just take LG as an example. And we've got, I'm going to say, potentially hundreds of professional display models. If they're not in here, you can add your own quite easily. If I just take a 55, which seems quite popular at the moment. This includes the resolution of the display, refresh rate, bezel sizes. Okay, so we can add some of these to the video wall. So I'll just choose a 3x3 and we can add them to the video wall. And then we can go in here and put a background in. So we have some preloaded backgrounds. Okay, but we've also got the ability to browse. So I could put that on there, see how it's going to look in an outdoor installation, but you can also browse and you could take a picture of the customer's particular area and put that on. So it's quite a powerful tool. It's a great sales tool. You don't have to be connected to the FX4 to use it. And it's a free download. So you can go and install this software on your laptop when you're going to see customers. And, you know, it's, like I say, it's a great tool to allow you to demo the product to customers. So then I can go in here and potentially rotate. So we can do portrait or landscape, but I'll just put 3 screens of portrait just as an example of how it works. And then I can go into the inputs tab and put some content on there. So here we've just got some static content. Looks a bit better with the video. I'm sure you've all seen this video before. And this is showing you how the video would look on the customer's particular demo. We could also browse here and put the customer's content on there. So if you were to put your customer's picture in there of their region and their own content, you could give them a really personalized demo of how it could look, and it's very effective. And then we can go back into the outputs, and while that video is still playing, we can move them around. So if you think it looks better like this, and then if we go back and we refit this, that will refit that video across there. You can replicate, so you can have the same video playing on all the displays. So it is very simple to use, but very flexible. And what it gives us is the ability to go into these capture regions and show which area of the video is being displayed or cropped for that particular screen. You might think, actually, there's quite a bit of wasted space here, so I could move screen 1 a little bit further over. Or you could, for example, have the whole video playing on screen 3. I'll show you what that looks like if you go back to the output. Here we've got the whole video playing, and then the rest of the video playing here. So it's very flexible, gives you a lot of different options. And one of the big things that we say, why would you use this over, or questions we get asked, why would you use this over a screen loop through, for example? Good question, but this gives you a lot more control. So we can mix and match different displays, different resolutions, different sizes. That's not an issue, and I'll show you that. We have the ability to adjust the capture regions, so we can crop different areas for different displays, but we can also move the area of the screen which is cropping out, or if it's not quite right once it's been installed, we can move these pixel by pixel up and down. And this gives us the ability to be very precise and make the adjustments. You can make these adjustments live to the video wall once it's been installed as well. And I'll show you how to do that. So if we just go back to the outputs here, and just to show you what I meant with regards to adding other displays. So if we had this set up here, I can then go in here, choose a different model. So let's just choose something which is going to show the difference in the size, like a 98-inch, for example. And we can change that there. So we could have that, or we could add more to the wall. I've changed one of those. Then if I rotate that. So there we've got 8 displays, 55-inch and 1 at 98. And then I can go into the inputs, refit that output, and it will play across all of those displays. So this is where it gives you the value of using this, because it will, if these screens are multi-resolution, it will take that into account. That's not a problem. And we can go into devices here. And then if I click HDR, so this is a great feature as well. If you're designing your setup, it gives me a warning. So all of these outputs are full HD, but this particular screen, the 98-inch that I've picked, this is a 4K screen. So it gives you a warning that the bandwidth will not support 4K. Okay. So it would be you would have to have a lower bandwidth going into that, which would be full HD. So if you've got upscaling on the screen, great. But yeah, this is what we support. So it gives you a warning, which is nice. It's a good design tool as well. And what it also gives us, it shows us the topology of the setup. And then once we're happy with that, if we connect this via USB to the new units that we've set up, hit apply settings, it will store all of these settings onto the boxes. And then you're putting your input in, it should just crop and scale accordingly. And then once you're connected, if you do need to make any changes, you can do this live to the video wall. For example, somebody may have connected the wrong screens to certain outputs. So we can just switch outputs here. So we can switch output 5 and 6 there, hit apply settings, and it will flip those outputs. Very useful for live events. It's got me out of trouble at numerous trade shows where we've connected the screens incorrectly when we didn't necessarily know which one was which. Behind a wall you can't see. Very useful. And then we can go into the inputs here, adjust the capture regions, and we can, like I said earlier, we can adjust these pixel by pixel. So if your installer has installed it slightly out and you think it's not looking perfect, we can adjust pixel by pixel, and this, if you're connected, will move that content over and help you to get it perfectly. That's a nice feature as well. One more thing which we've added, let me just show you some examples. So here is an example of where we can support different outputs. So we've got 4K going in, and then we've got full HD display here, and a 0.7 pixel pitch LED module with a smaller resolution. Okay, so that's how much the fixture resolution is. So we've got 2 full HD displays here, and we've got 2 LED modules here and here. And what we're doing is this feature that we added to the software, which should be very useful for combining displays, and especially with LED, where we don't necessarily need to show all of the pixels. If we go into devices here, you'll see how the FX4 and the software can now add these dead pixels here, these black bars, or they could be any color if we wanted to. We can add these borders. You can see here we've got border color, so I could change this if I needed to. But we can add that in, so then it only shows the particular area of the video that you need specific to that module. So we've had a lot of requests from LED manufacturers for this. So this helps us to crop the content, then going into a sender box out onto the LED wall. Again, very useful. I'm not sure if this is going to share. My laptop is a little bit slow on this. What it also is, we've got a print option here, and it will give you a printout of the video wall for an installer. So once I've put in the displays and the sizes, it will give me like a very basic schematic to show the distances between the screens. You can give it to them and say, this is how I want them installed. So again, another nice feature. Yeah. I'll stop sharing that and I'll just go back to the slides. Okay, so we do.
I just wanted to add few points.
Sure, yes.
Yeah. Most of you all aware that we used to use chassis-based video wall processor, which used to give multiple output. The difference between old processor and this model is, this is mainly used for a reception for a signage purpose, where you will be taking like one input and giving multiple outputs. One is to create a larger wall, other one is to create isometric video wall. What Andy shows that you can install it in different aspect ratios, like a portrait and landscape. That's isometric wall. It is possible to do isometric wall as well as one single large displays. For example, you can have multiple displays to have one single image. If you want multiple images, you can use a bright sign or a one-line digital signage player to bring in many images. And one more advantage is, if you are using a chassis base, one is the costing is higher, and then you have to use a lot of transmitter and receivers and HDMI cables. When you are using FX4, this can go behind the TVs, where you can save a lot of cabling costs and space concerns. Yeah.
Thanks, Sab. So yeah, something I hadn't touched on was where it could go into. So that's really useful. Thank you. So it's like he says, it's a great tool for just showing one input. We can daisy chain multiple boxes together, so you're not limited on that. Really, you're only limited on the content you're putting in. So the maximum is 4K in, and then it will upscale or downscale depending on the displays, and it still looks very good on 20 plus displays. So if you've got a big enough video wall, it will support it. We've tested 8 units so far together, so 32 screens. So you can get a big size video wall using multiple boxes. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go to our website just to show you some case studies for it. Okay, so this is the case study page of our website. So you can see this is freely available for you guys to go and have a look at. And there's various installations in here, but what you'll see a lot of the FX4 used for often is with projectors as well. So we've got some very clever guys who are using it with projectors, for motion mapping. So they do all of the edge blending themselves, but we just allow the different projectors to be positioned and we just give that output, the content output to them. So there's a lot of different options available. Here's one. This like Sabrish mentioned, we're mixing and matching different size screens, portrait and landscape, different resolutions. So this was with Stella McCartney Fashion House in UK. So here's some of the different setups that they'd had in their windows. We've been used in a sphere setup in Korea, where they've got multiple FX4s and they've combined them with different projectors to create a dome sphere, which is very impressive when you see it. It's been used in a Star Wars. This is quite good for those of you Star Wars fans. Been used with at the Royal Albert Hall for the I think it was the premiere of The Last Jedi. So they were used to split the content across multiple displays. So it is a very versatile product which can be used for lots of different installations. So please have a look. Let's say airports, so showing one video across all of the displays, but not symmetrical. Like I say, it's well worth having a look on there when you do get time. Okay. Go back to. So, are there any questions on the multi-display before we move on to the controller-based systems? If there's no questions, I'll move on. One from Murali. Yes, it does support portrait, so you can combine portrait and landscape together. So any combination, as you can see here, we've got portrait and landscape, and it will crop that video accordingly.
If somebody asks, can you do 45-degree? Yes, we can do. There is a workaround solution for it. You can use a one-line signage player. The signage player tilts the content to 45-degree, wherein Datapath helps to do a bezel correction and everything. And you can tilt the content to 45-degree to achieve the 45-degree angle displays.
Thanks, Sam. So yeah, and it does have a great potential partnership with media players like OneLAN, Cable Time, Bright Sign. So they all have different features, but with us being agnostic, we can support all of those and others, and we can support that through this system. So can we play multiple videos? So on this system, we can only play one input. If you've got a media player with a CMS system which can manage different videos, whatever, we can just take that input and it will split that. In terms of managing multiple video inputs, that would be our controllers and the processors, which I'm going to talk about now. Okay. So I'll move on to those. Oh, our wall designer software is now Mac compatible as well after many requests for it. So please go and have a look, download it, have a play with it. It is very useful software. And if you have any feedback, please let us know. Okay. The second part of the talk is about our Windows-based controllers. So these can be anything from a large VSN controller, which is a 4U rack mount system, and potentially other daisy-chained rack mount systems, or down to an IR-Lite system, which is a smaller, quieter system, which is more in tune for a small crisis room or a boardroom setup. So this is the portfolio here. So here we've got the VSN range. Here is the VSN Micro, and here is the IR-Lite range. These are combined with our vision capture cards, either our image DP4 or image 4K output card, graphics card, and potentially one of our, or more of our decoding card, the Active SQX. So this is how you'd see a typical Datapath chassis-based system. And we've got the VSN here being at the heart of it, taking in different video signals, so desktop captures, media servers, video cameras, potentially IP streaming servers, IP TV, surveillance cameras coming in and being decoded, network sources, VNC, local applications. All of these are coming in and being managed by the Datapath software. This can then be controlled either locally or via some kind of command line, Crestron, AMX, RTI, whoever your preferred control system is. And then we will output those and give you the ability to have lots of different setups of how you're playing those outputs, potentially one per display or across multiple displays or across the whole wall. we can do that. So the features that we like to push from a video wall processor: single source maximized across multiple displays, multiple sources per output, so effectively we're multi-viewing on each output, picture in picture or picture over picture, free forms, we can drag it anywhere with or without the aspect ratio maintained, and showing a source device, so showing that source across these displays. So here's your single source going across multiple displays in this particular installation, and here so what do we need? So for this, we've got scaling. This is all done on the Datapath cards themselves, so you won't have to worry about the CPU of the system slowing down. Okay? It helps us to it allows us to maintain aspect ratio if we need to. We can crop a single source if we need to, and you can show that source multiple times with or without the crop at the same time on the same wall. And different source types or backgrounds, we can do that. Multiple sources per output. Effectively, each source becomes a multi-viewer in its own right. This is very useful for taking in multiple IP camera feeds, for example. You could have 9 or 16 per screen, even more if you need to, although also you have to bear in mind you want to keep it to a size which is reasonable so the operator can see it. Or you could use one output going into an LED sender box, which we did at a couple of exhibitions over the last year with the Mindstech guys. So this is where with the LED will take one input, but for that one input, we can put multiple outputs on there. So it's splitting up your LED wall with multiple sources. And here we've got examples of where the multiple sources per output coming in. And what we needed to do this, we need layers, so we can support multiple layers going out per output. Here we've got one over the other for picture in picture. Again, this requires layers. So here we've got different outputs all being layered either next to each other or on top of each other, and we can support this as well, again through layers per output. And freeform mode, we can show different sources and we can drag those across either multiple screens or squash them depending on how you want it shown. Like I say, can maintain the aspect ratio or not. Here we've dragged one to go in a portrait setup showing statistics, and here we've managed to put them a little bit smaller depending on the display and what's being shown. Again, we use layers per output to allow us to create that freeform mode. And the source device, so allowing us to show different sources or different devices on different screens or multiple screens. And this, to do this, we need an operating system to drive it to allow us to do it. Okay, so just had a couple of questions. I'll try and keep the questions at the end of each section, but these might. So IP streams, network sources. I'll talk about those shortly. And does it support remote view over LAN? It does, and I'll talk about that when we get to the software side of things, just so we can flow a little bit better. So just a reminder of our portfolio here. The VSN controllers, so 4U rack mount systems available with 4, 9 and 11 slots. Some of these with the option of an i7, a Xeon or a dual Xeon, and various RAM options, storage options, and some with single power, a lot with redundant power supply, and so you can specify depending on tenders, budget, whatever is required. We can usually help you, or the guys from Mindstech can help you design a system which is specific to the customer. So all of our systems like this are bespoke. We build them to order, and you can help help us by getting as much information as you can, and we can then push you down a particular road depending on, like I say, the project requirements. We can expand, so if you do have a requirement for a really big video wall system, we can do this. Currently with Windows 10 systems, we have on HDMI 48 outputs supported, so we can support 48 output screens. And on 4K systems, we can support 24 4K outputs. And then if you're looping through, potentially even more. We'll talk about that more shortly. VSN 600s, these are the smaller controllers available with an i5 or an i7 with single or dual power supply, and these are smaller, not rack mountable, but some people are asking us, you know, they want to put it in a cabinet or into a localized cabinet in the same room as the crisis room. We can do this. These are very quiet in operation. Less heat, less noise. So they've been designed for that particular purpose. And just to recap, where are these going into, these VSN controllers? NOC rooms, control rooms, security rooms, defense projects. There's a lot of areas where these can potentially go into. And then the IO-like systems are similar to the VSN Micro, but these are aimed at more of your corporate installations. So the way we try and sell a lot of the IO-like systems is a pre-boxed solution. So rather than you having to get too deep into understanding which cards you might use, which software, we offer them both as a configured system or a pre-configured system. So you could buy these as a one part code system off the shelf. They're already pre-built with software. So you don't need to specify multiple part codes. It's one example, 4 in, 4 out HDMI video wall controller. Great for a boardroom. So they've got 2x2 and they want to be able to put 4 laptops on the wall during presentations, potentially go full screen, bring in other inputs. Very easy to do with something like that. And here are the pre-configured models, just to give you an idea. 600 101 is 4 in, 4 out. 102 is 4 in, 8 out. 103, 4 in, 12 out. 104, 4 in, 16. And that's how the system looks inside. So we've got space, if you do require it, for 6 slots, 6 cards, any combination of capture and graphics, depending on your particular setup. And then the 12i. So people did ask us for an IO-like which was rack mountable. And we came up with something slightly different. So at the time, people wanted us to be able to mix 4K and full HD outputs on the same chassis. And we couldn't do that when this was first released. So this product brought that into our thinking, and then we can now offer it on the whole range. But yes, this was a bit of a change from our standard hardware because it had the outputs built in. So no graphics cards, it's built into the system. Either 12 HDMI or 3 4K DisplayPort outputs. And you can mix and match. So you might have 1 DisplayPort output for a breakout screen and then 8 full HD. You sort of mix and match between them. And then you've got space for 2 capture cards. So we had quite a lot of interest from some small security guys who have different small crisis rooms, and they want to have it in their rack, not necessarily many captures or decodes. This is an ideal solution for them. How many windows can be displayed per output card? Good question. So each each output can display, I think it is 16 different instances, potentially more than that, of each captured output. I need to check that. Alrighty, good question.
But we tried up to 16. We can open up to 16 windows.
Yes, that's guaranteed. Yes, and potentially with the SQX sources, the decoded sources, potentially more, because I've been asked about that recently, and some people do have more on, but I can find that out. Windows per output max. I'll find that out. And this is just an example of the comparison between the two. I'll leave that in there for when you have a chance to look through these slides. And just some use cases where these have been used. So retail signage where they're using more than one source. So here we've got a video being played across 3x3, but then they've got logos and potentially some group information coming through, shop opening times. So they need, rather than one input, they need 4 inputs across that wall. And they can do this here. And so there's a mixture of local and remote content. This one was actually in Russia, but then they had the ability to put that easily behind a counter or a desk space, and it makes it very quiet to run. So it's a local installation, and it's very useful. Corporate reception. So here we've got it. This is just show one video across them, but you can change it. So you might have information screens, a couple of screens showing the weather or local company Twitter feeds, that kind of setup. So we can do that. Easy access for reception staff, whether they want to control it via our own simple web API, or if there's a Crestron or whatever touch panel, you can set that up. So you might have a welcome for certain customers or different setups at different times of day. We can do that. KVM support, we'll talk about that a little bit later. That is part of the presentation. Sorry, that's a question that's just come in about KVM, so we'll talk about that shortly. And then a corporate boardroom. So here we've got a 2x2, but we've got 4 people sharing their laptops. But we've also got another source being laid over that they can view as well. So it gives you the option to be very flexible, and you can display for multiple people. When we connect the laptop, it will just auto detect and play. So you don't have to make any particular changes. It's very simple, very easy to use. So just to recap, where could you see them? Boardrooms, auditoriums, potentially digital signage, higher end signage, small crisis rooms. So going back to our capture cards now, just as an example, this is our range. So we do have, if you go on our website, there's an even bigger range, but this is the latest range, and the majority of systems that we sell now, you would be able to build with either one or a combination of these cards in our system. So the Vision SC range, the backbone of this range is the HD4 Plus. So this captures 4 HDMI channels. We have a splitter cable, so it can capture on either HDMI or display or DVI. And we can capture 4 full HD captures in there. We have an SDI4, and this will capture 4 3G SDIs at full HD. A DP2, so this will capture 2 DisplayPort 4K 60 channels. And the latest, sort of the flagship capture card, is the Vision SC UHD2, and this will capture 2 HDMI 2.0, 4K 60, 444 inputs, supports HDCP 2.2. This will capture some of those media players that we were talking about earlier. Okay. And with Datapath, you're not limited on HDCP outputs. So some of the competition are limited to a number. As long as we're combining our capture and our graphics cards, we're not limited there. And then potentially you can combine these with our decoding card. So this is great for decoding IP streams coming in. Perfect for your big surveillance projects. And each card will decode 12 full HD streams at 30 frames per second per card. And then if you're going higher resolution, less, or if you're going to a low resolution like HD, VGA, we can have up to 50 decodes per card. So this is a really useful card. You can have multiple cards in multiple chassis, so potentially we can decode hundreds of IP cameras at the same time. And they will all show up as a source, and we can put them into different layouts. So that's a great feature. What it also allows us to do is decode local media. So if you have local media files that you want to play, like a company presentation video, our systems will play it, but it does use the CPU of the system when you do that. This Active SQX card gives you the ability for it to decode those local videos if you put them in a repository for the card. So then if you've got some 4K videos that you want to play, rather than using the CPU of the system, we can use the Active SQX card to effectively play them and use the hardware on the card rather than the CPU. So again, if you're doing it for installs for corporate where you're playing local videos, worth thinking about having an Active SQX card in there if you're looking to play 4K or lots of other videos. It's very useful. And yes, they will support 444 at 60 Hertz. Thank you for the question, Marge. Okay, and then moving on to our output cards. Image DP4 Plus. This is traditionally in a lot of our systems. So like I said earlier, we can support 48 simultaneous outputs, so 12 cards in one system if we need to. DisplayPort is the native connection, and we can have multiple cards, like I say, so you can have DisplayPort or other adapters which we supply for DVI or HDMI if you need to. And the image 4K card. So this is our latest graphics card. This offers true 4K 60 444 outputs on a HDMI connection. So already it's become popular with people if they don't want to use an adapter, if they just want a straight HDMI and they want to future-proof their system, they can use this card. Okay, so it gives us the ability for true 4K 60 systems if we're combining it with a UHD2 capture card. Supports HDCP 2.2 when you use our cards with it. One thing to remember, VSN 400, 600 and 11 series are the only ones that support this. So it won't work in an iLite or a 900 series due to the bandwidth required. Just something to remember when we're specifying systems. So pre-sales, some of the things that we say to us to make it easier for ourselves. Quantities, what type of input, how many, what resolution, and what frame rate is audio required. These are the sort of things that it makes it easier. If we can find this out, we can then push you down a path towards a correct system. The thing with IP cameras, not necessarily everything to know how many you need decoding, but how many you need to be displayed at any one time. So IP, how many of these cameras or decodes you need to show at any one time. This is useful because we can then, you don't necessarily need to decode all of them at any one time. So if you had, example, 300 cameras, but you wanted to see 9 per screen, and you only had a 3x3 video wall, there's 81 decodes that you need at once. The rest would be in the background, and you could set them up in what we call a carousel, where it switches between a setup of cameras and another set of cameras. We can do this. You just need to take into account you would need double the amount of hardware, and this allows you then to effectively decode in the background, so the transition or the changeover from one set of cameras to another is smooth. VNC, we do support VNC, and we have our own. We say it supports between 6 and 8. We don't recommend it for showing lots of moving video. What we do say is it should, if you are wanting to show a lot of local video, we would recommend capturing that. VNC is good if you're just sharing your desktop from time to time with more static images. And local applications, does it need to, is KVM required, this kind of thing. And then what output devices? Are we going to LED walls now? Is it more LCD or cubes? Are we going to projectors? What potential connection do we require? And then if it's based on a tender, you might want to say, actually, I need an i7 or I need a Xeon or a dual Xeon even to match a tender spec. And then different storage options. Does it need to be in the room or in a rack? So you might be pushed down a route. If it needs to be in the same room, go for a VSN 600 because it's quieter. And what kind of control? So this links in with one of the questions that's just come in. So different users to manage different content. Yeah. Do they need security? And I'll talk about that when we move on to the software side of things. So let me just check, see if there are any questions on the hardware. Can we use a single processor to support multiple walls? I think Savarish answered that yes, and we'll talk about that shortly. How secure is your system? Is it write protected? Can you expand on write protected? Just explain in a little bit more detail. In terms of differentiating the product, I'll try and talk about that at the end once we've gone through, if that's okay. Max bandwidth, I would have to find that out for you. Again, that's something that I'll write up a follow-up email about the questions if we can't answer them today. It will vary per system, so I'll find that out. So our software lineup, this is very useful. So we have a DDCT tool. So this is a display driver configuration tool. So this is included free of charge and helps you set up the video wall. So similar to Wall Designer, has a preloaded database and it works like a wizard. So this will boot up as soon as you switch the system on, and we can work through and set up our wall. Then we have Wall Control 10, which a lot of people are familiar with. This manages your video wall with standard or pro versions, manages your sources. And then we have a diagnostic suite, which is installed on all systems. And it allows us to take a snapshot and show what driver versions are running, what serial numbers of cards. And if there are any system issues, we can diagnose, or it will help us diagnose through this. So not only does it give you the chance to diagnose on site, through this allows us to take log files, which can then be sent back to our engineers to have a look at if there are any issues. And this is how the DDCT tool looks. Like I say, a setup wizard, very easy to work through. Setup with bezels or without, bezel compensation on, different model of display, and a really useful setup tool. And you can combine portrait or landscape, and it will help the ease of setup into wall control. Also works with projectors, so you could potentially overlap. We don't do the edge blending, but it will give you the chance to overlap, and then the projectors can take over with their edge blending software. LED walls, so it allows us to put different modules, different sizes in there and create your setup. Multiple display groups, so potentially we can have multiple displays combined together, different setups. And your blueprint. So currently, your main video wall or your main setup, your overall wall is called blueprint, and then potentially we can split that into different walls if we need to. Multi-wall, for example, we can have these and we can operate them as separate video walls. So here's how it looks. This is the overview of the system. So here are your sources. We've got vision, which is the capture card sources, local images, browser sources. So you put your web input here, and you can just, like I say, any of these you can drag and drop to the wall. Different source types, browsers, local applications, remote connections. So we have our own integrated VNC called Datapath Agent. And we can link into this using KVO, and I'll talk about that shortly. Local images, local videos, and we can take crops of these, we can rotate, scale them, we can set them up on a carousel, so you could have 3 different videos in the same window, and each one play for a certain amount of time. You can set that all up. Very easy to set up a template in this, so you just drop a template onto your overall canvas. It splits it up, and then you can put content in it, and then you can even put a template inside a template. So here we've split it up even further into multiple IP cameras, and again, once you've got your sources, you just drag and drop them on. You can save that as a layout, and then you can recall those either using the local client or through control systems. Here's how you set up your template. So you just literally you set up, here we had a 5x5, and then we just draw, join areas together, and that will set it up as a region like we've done here. You save that, and that will treat that as a region that you can drop content in, irrespective of whether that region goes over one or multiple screens. Very easy to set up. On-screen display, so we can add on-screen display over the source if we wanted to. So we can put in the like camera 1 or room 1, and we can put this in and change the color and where it's located. Cropping, this is very useful. So we showed this recent shows before lockdown happened, unfortunately. This allows us to take a source, crop it, and then we can have that alongside the original source as a source for the video wall. So you can have input 1 and input 1 cropped, and you can then drag and drop those onto the video wall. Example, you could have a 4K input, and you could crop a certain area of that, push it to the other side of the video wall for someone else to look at. Carousels, like I mentioned, so here we've got this particular window. It's got the Datapath homepage playing for 15 seconds, and we've got a local video file, MP4, playing for 15 seconds, and we can put multiple sources in here, and it will play on a loop, effectively like a playlist. Remote connection, so VNC, I mentioned this, Datapath agent. So it's wrapped up in a Datapath branding, but it is effectively type VNC. And this allows us to put our remote source laptop onto the wall. Okay. Web page sources or URLs. Find this very popular in Indian market, where we could show company data. Previously, it was quite hard because some of these URLs don't necessarily resize easily. So if you go across multiple screens, they might have a lot of white background, a lot of wasted space above or below or to each side of the content. This now allows us to zoom in or crop certain regions so we can zoom into the specific part of the URL which your operators need to look at. And we've got a refresh option. So if it's company data constantly updating, we can change that to a certain time, and then we can update every 30 seconds, for example. And the end user interaction. So what options do they have? They can use the Wall Control 10 client, which you can install on a network. There's no additional charge for number of client licenses. You could have a host, so you can connect to the chassis if you've got an operator station that connects directly to the system. That will also run the client. And this gives you a 1 frame per second representation of what's going on the video wall. Or you could use Crestron or AMX or RTI to drive layouts, or potentially we can have a simple use, which is through our new web interface. So as long as you've got a touch screen, you can go to the particular IP address, and then just once you've created these previously, we can then go in and just touch, and this will drive different layouts. Okay. This is also a very simple way of locking it down. So if you don't want to install the full client on people's PCs and give them full access to sources, if you just give them the IP address, they could go in and all they've got options to do is just change the layout of the video wall. So the different versions, all of the, or a lot of those features that I was talking about are all included in the standard version. Okay. What you need the Pro version for is to control multiple video walls. If you need user rights management, security settings via Active Directory. And if you need unlimited IP decode, so you want to use the Active SQX card for this. Okay. There is one more version which has been released recently, so that's the VMS version. And currently this links in with Milestone XProtect. So if you do have security installations that are going to be installed as part of an XProtect setup, we can now link in directly to that, so they can control the video wall through their XProtect client. And some of you may have seen, we did a webinar yesterday directly with Milestone, as we're now on their approved partner list. So this is an approved system for use with controlling their video walls. So key features, like I've said, just to recap: templates, layout control, cropping, aspect ratio, some background noise, carousel, remote connection, web client, all of these features. But if you need the Pro version, it has to be because of multi-wall, user rights management, via Active Directory, or multiple IPD codes. Okay. And I'll very briefly, I can see time's getting on. I want to try and get to Q&A if we can. So the recent additions. So we, in 1.9, which was in December, we introduced these updates to the web architecture and KVM to source using Datapath agent, which is very useful. So here's the bit more in detail on the web architecture. So it's very simple at the moment. Gives us a chance to just either touch with a touch screen like an iPad, for example, or if you're just a local operator, you can click on these and they will just fire layouts, just triggering them. But it gives us the opportunity to build on this for the future, so we will be adding more features to this. And recently we added the snapshot. So if you're not necessarily in the room, same room as video wall, we can go in here, click this button, and it will give us a snapshot, just a picture of what's actually being shown on the video wall at any one time. And KVM to source. So where we can share a Datapath agent source to the video wall, we can now right click on that and take control of that. So if I'm operating from the client, I can look at, say, Andy's laptop, right click, open connection, and it will give me the opportunity to take control of that, so I could potentially enter user credentials. So it's that very basic but very useful software KVM to that particular source. And obviously the advanced browser features which we've added, which I've discussed. A few new command lines. So if you're using RTI, Crestron, AMX, we've got these in there. And some more security features with SQX, and now we have secured passwords with the SQX streams. On-screen display, like I mentioned previously, and not only can you add your own text, but you can add variables like the source name, time and date, resolution to the wall. And then in January, we added colored borders and frames. So we can add a colored border now. Here you can see, so certain operators might work on certain areas of the video wall. We can do that. You might want them to flash on and off different colors. We can do that. Again, with frames, we can do that. PDF control, so similar to web browser control, we can do that in terms of zooming in, zooming out, cropping certain areas, or starting at certain pixels. We can do that on PDFs. And this is really the point I wanted to get to. So there is a scheduled release for April. I know it's April at the moment, but I think we're looking towards the end of April, possibly into May now, due to obviously our software guys having to work from home at the moment. But some of the features that they're going to add to it, so banners and RSS feeds, so allow us to have scrolling text left to right or right to left with a transparent background if required. So this is something for our signage customers, which would be very useful. Been asked for it many times. The ability to rename Blueprint, not always a big thing, but for some of my customers that work in other languages, like Russian customers, this was a big thing for them. And vision restreaming, so this will be a pro feature. So you will be able to take your capture card sources and they will be encoded to H.264 streams for use around the network. So for example, if you want to then view them via VLC as a source preview, you could do, as long as they're non-HTTP, or you could send them across the network and potentially be decoded by another controller that's got an active SQX card in. So all very early days at the moment, but it's quite exciting for us. And it started to create some building blocks for us as we move into future AV over IP systems. Just going back through some of the questions. So authentication for different users. At the moment, we only do that on the Pro version using Active Directory. Non-Active Directory user rights management is coming in the future. The only other way, like I said, would be to not give people access to the client and just let them control the video wall via the web, the simple web functionality, and that just gives them layouts that they can choose. Yes, we can process multiple video walls, and our location is manufacturers in the UK. Price-wise, Datapath is a high-end system, but I think compared with a lot of the big OEM manufacturers that you would see, we are very well priced, and obviously you can discuss with Sabarish about that. But it is a premium. It is a premium product that has been out there for many years in the market. Okay. So that's all I've got really today. I don't know if there's any questions on that. I can go into a bit more detail on some new products that we've got coming out. But I was just leaving some free time to go through any questions or maybe have a discussion. Of course, I will share the PowerPoint slide. Sab, is there anything that you think would be more useful now while we've just got spare 10 minutes to go through?
Okay, we can discuss about the use case in the first. You can go to the schematic of the slide. There is a second slide, right? So we can explain them some more use cases.
Yes, yeah.
There is a schematic which shows the different input source.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, carry on, sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, if you look at the top one, video signal, so it can take HDMI or VGA or a different video signal. You can go for multiple inputs. And IP stream, it can decode the IP camera directly to the processor. For example, when you build a security operating center, the way is like they used to have dedicated PCs. The camera used to come to the PC. From the PC, we will be connecting to the video one. That is one way of doing it. But if you look at it, many customers nowadays asked, we don't want to dedicate any PCs. You have to decode it from my NVR or directly from the camera. So this SQS card can stream the IP camera directly to the processor. So there is a chat, like each card, you can add multiple cards. Each card can stream, decode 12 IP camera stream as full HD at 30 Hz. So if you are going for 60 Hz, then it is 6. Normally these cameras, CCTV cameras are monitored less than HD resolution. So based on the client information, we can choose the card. So by doing this, you are not having any dedicated PC for the decoding the camera. The processor can directly decode the IP cameras. That is one of the useful of SQS card.
And
then,
sorry,
yes.
Sam, I'll just add to that. Again, the beauty of that is that all the decoding is being done on the card and not the actual chassis. So that you can do all of this and combine it with other sources like HDMI and other local files if you need to. And it's all being managed in the same server through the same GUI. So you don't have multiple PCs or GUIs to work from.
Yeah. And the third input is like network-based inputs. Say, for instance, in a control room, they must be having 40 desktops. Okay, you can't lay 40 HDMI cable to the processor, but you are giving flexibility to the user to mirror any desktop over the network. So there is a piece of software, Datapath agent, that needs to be installed and pre-configure the IP addresses onto the processor. In single click of button, you can mirror any desktop to the video wall over the network. That is one way of doing it. Other one is nowadays, most of the corporate users, they have their own application on the URL based. So you can open up a multiple URL directly onto the processor. You don't need to dedicate number of PC inputs. You can save the cost. Other one is a space, and you have a single processor to handle everything. So we have installation 42 outputs, and they're using almost 32 URLs simultaneously, which is high graphics URL. So this processor handles multiple inputs also. That's the beauty of it. It is not limited to the number of only physical input and output. So virtual inputs are more. You can have IP stream, you can have a URL, and you can have LAN-based inputs.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And one more question asked: can this processor can handle multiple walls? Say for instance, you have multiple groups, different rooms, 3 rooms. We can give them 3 different logins. One single processor can handle 3 walls. You can send the command independently. You can use a Crystal or RTI touch panel in each room. You can operate it independently. The inputs can go to anywhere.
So that makes it very powerful in terms of you sharing the sources effectively. So you don't need 3 separate controllers, and then that hopefully brings the cost down of that particular installation.
Yeah. Main use case what we see is like the control room and war room. So there will be a big control room. Next to it, there is a small war room. So all the inputs can go anywhere. The war room input can go to the control room. Control room inputs can come into the war room.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good point. And one of the other areas where we like to talk about where we can move into is obviously boardrooms and that kind of area, and the smaller systems do give you that flexibility. So they still use the same software, the same high-powered cards and software, but it allows you to then operate in different rooms. And you might have, it might be a command center, but they might also have a boardroom, so you can control these multiple walls again through the same system, which makes it really powerful.
And we have many installation where our processor is connected to the customer network. So customer can install their custom build OS to the video wall processor to enable and open their own applications. It's possible to install custom build applications of customers.
Just trying to think. So with regards to milestones, so we're talking about security projects. I don't know if you do come across any of the milestone projects. We will also be adding support for Genetec, which is also big security VMS, in hopefully the next 2 or 3 months. So this is going to work in a very similar way to how we work with Milestone. And basically, once Datapath has been installed, you won't really see us. So the brief that we got from Milestone was that, well, if this system is installed with Milestone X Protect software, they don't want to have to learn or use another GUI like Datapath. So now with our plugin, then the installations you might have to switch between different GUIs. Our plugin allows us to give them the full user experience of Milestone, but also the ability to control the video wall. So it's quite a powerful solution. And if it is in a tender, we are, there's not a huge amount of manufacturers out there that do support that. So it's well worth keeping in mind if there is a security VMS on the tender or as part of the project. Any other questions? Not at the moment. Okay, I mean, if there aren't any more questions, Sab, did you want to say anything else?
No, Andy. So I covered. I think there are many questions. We will answer them through mail. There are a few questions is not answered. We can reply through the mail.
Yes, that's fine. And please send through the questions afterwards to Sabrish or myself. I've got a couple here, which I'll work on. I'll check with our product managers, and I will send out an email to everybody, including the slides, including a recording if you've got any colleagues that missed it, if did want to watch it, and with the answers to these particular questions. So if I'll do that probably on Monday, and that will give us time to collate any more questions, and I can potentially get the answers for you before then. Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. Appreciate giving up some time. I hope everybody's well during this say difficult time where we're all currently locked down. So hopefully you're using your time well and staying safe. Let me just share my video again, just to say goodbye. Thank you again to everybody, and yeah, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.